Well, Nick Sirianni told us no team drills, no 11 on 11. So it's going to be a bunch of 7 on 7 drills and, individual work before that. So, really, it's always hard when you're running around in shirts and shorts, even in a typical old school, let's call it football mindset, to get any feeling on the offensive line, the defensive line, and the running backs, all these physical positions. But you can get a feel for the quarterbacks and the skill position, the receivers, the corners, and things like that.
It's a back to work Tuesday after a nice long holiday weekend. Yes, we're back to work here on Birds 365. If you're heading back to work today after a long weekend, don't work too hard. And believe it or not, the Philadelphia Eagles are back to work today. Going to get some grass time in.
First day of phase 3 OTAs, the on-field stuff, Jody. We won't be there. And by we, I say the media, but first day. So back to work. Happy Tuesday, as Jonathan Gannon might say.
Good for Jonathan Gannon. Good for the Philadelphia Eagles. The fact that they are getting back onto the field is nice to know, seeing as the baseball team in town is going in the tank altogether too quickly. Yes, the attention may be focusing even more than usual on the Philadelphia Eagles, and that the beam is usually pretty bright with this football team, and it should be this year because they've had as good an off season as they've had. Yes, you guys not allowed in. Thursday is going to be your first day. Grass time?
Friday, I believe.
Friday.
Okay.
You gotta wait till Friday. All right.
Still waiting for the schedule as usual, but tentative Friday.
Tentatively, you're actually going to be able to get out there Friday, but the Birds will get together and actually do some physical activities. It's OTAs, training activities. What do you think these activities will include, Mr. McMullen?
Well, Nick Sirianni told us no team drills, no 11 on 11. So it's going to be a bunch of 7 on 7 drills and, individual work before that. So, really, it's always hard when you're running around in shirts and shorts, even in a typical old school, let's call it football mindset, to get any feeling on the offensive line, the defensive line, and the running backs, all these physical positions. But you can get a feel for the quarterbacks and the skill position, the receivers, the corners, and things like that. And the other guys, yeah, I mean, they got to wait till July, really, to get the pads on for the few times they can get the pads on. Then you can see the physicality show through. But we all know, look, the strength of this team, I would argue, pretty clearly is the offensive line. And then if you would say, well, what's the second? I'd probably say the defensive line. And I'm including the Sam linebackers in that, the Hassan Reddicks of the world. I'm including them in the defensive line. So, I'm not as worried about the offensive and defensive lines. Not even that worried about running back, to be honest, other than, is Miles Sanders ever going to turn into what people thought he was going to turn into? But he's going to be a good player. The question is how good, how much improvement are you going to see from Kenny Gainwell? Are the Eagles going to have to go back to the crutch of Boston Scott? Those are questions, I guess, Jody, but they're not really concerns because they can do it. They have the contingency plan in place. The offensive line is so good. Jody McDonald could run for 4 yards of carry behind it.
Let's not get carried away.
I think you could 4 yards. I got 4 yards. Miles was at 5.5.
My wheels ain't what they used to be. I would go under on the 4 yard over under there, big guy.
Obviously, I'm exaggerating. We're not going to do it, but any NFL running back is going to be able to do it. And so that's part of the reason I'm not concerned about that. So the things you have to learn about are the things you're able to work on. So I guess if you look at it that way, it's a positive. But, Nick's on record saying it's all about player health and safety, yada, 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 get to week 1 as healthy as possible. We're going to be here in training camp, hopefully, Jody, and we're going to say, nobody's playing in the preseason games because they have the joint practices. That's where all the veterans are going to get their work. And we said it last year with Jalen Hurts. I don't expect him to play one snap. I'm predicting him right now. He didn't play last year. Why the heck would he play this year when he's somewhat proven? So, we're going to show up week 1 in Detroit, similar to last year, not knowing what to fully expect would be my prediction.
But Jalen Hurts will be playing in those all-important dual practices with the Browns and with the Dolphins, where the Eagles are expected to go undefeated since they did last year, 4-0 in their dueling practices. We're still a ways away from that. And I was looking up today, John, about roster size because 90 guys expected to be in. Is it 89? Did the Eagles get up to 90? I know they had an extra space.
They're at 90 now, so they're at the full bore. And if they bring somebody in, they'd have to release somebody now. So they're at 90. You go down to 53. You have a 16-man practice squad. They lock that in, so we're keeping the pandemic so-called practice squad. And you are allowed some veterans still on the practice squad, so that's helpful. Some injured reserve changes, 4 games instead of 3 games. Number 1, 8 guys can return. Man, back in the day, you couldn't bring anybody back off injured reserve. Now you can bring 8 guys. So a lot more sort of maneuverability for GMs and head coaches around the league when it comes to rosters in the NFL. I don't know. Do you like that? Or do you not like it? I'm kind of torn.
Well, here's why I would say I would like it from an Eagle perspective if I were an Eagle fan and I were analyzing my entire organization right now. If you think Howie Roseman is a good roster guy, if you think he's good around the margins, because that's what it is, because we're talking about 90 cut down to less because of the expanded practice squad, the ability to juggle and analyze and scout, self-scouting, do your own team, and have guys ready to step in. We're talking about, quote unquote, the fringes. If you're talking about being able to go back. If you think you've got a general manager, it's only 1 year that we judge the relationship between the general manager and the coaches in putting together the roster and maneuvering the roster. It's 90% on the GM, but the coach certainly should have opinions and be involved in the conversation. If you think you've got a good GM and you think the GM and the coach has a good relationship, the more flexibility you can get your hands on, the better. And I would say that is one of Howie Roseman's strong suits, that he is a good around the margins kind of guy. And so far, so good between he and Sirianni. So, yeah, any extra flexibility that's built into the rules around the National Football League, I would believe that it behooves the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We talk about loopholes all the time, whether they're salary cap loopholes, on the field loopholes. If you could take advantage of those situations, the Eagles are one of those teams that's kind of known for taking advantage of those types of situations. So, we've been talking about guys before James Bradbury came in, for instance. We talked a lot about Tate Gowan. He's a guy, Eagles were able to pick up, and they've talked about Kerry Vincent and all the corners the young corners they were able to bring in. Who knows? Maybe one of them turns into a player down the road. That's what you're hoping for. Maybe we see the same thing at safety later in the summer. Still talking about that. What are the Eagles going to do? They're going to stand pat. June 1st is coming tomorrow. That's a big demarcation line in the NFL offseason. Can make things a little bit easier when you're trying to pull off trades and things of that nature. So we're still going to be talking about Jesse Bates until Jesse Bates gets, something done with Cincinnati, I would imagine. So, yeah, there's still time. And Howie says it all the time. Talent gathering season, continues really up to the trade deadline. But June, the regular season.
June 1st, talk about it, changing rules in the NFL. June 1st isn't as big a date as it used to be, because they now have with June 1st designation for contracts and the like. It used to be you had to wait till June 1st. Until June 1st came and went before you made a move. that gave you cap flexibility, allowed you to cut a guy, spread it out over 2 years. Oh, you can do that in advance now. You can do it in like February if you want, but you
Well,
make it
you
a
can
June
do it
1st
in
designation.
February. You can do it in February, but what you do have to wait for the room. So I'll give you an example. Brandon Brooks retired. Comes June 1st is when this money comes off. Fletcher Cox is probably a better example. When he redid his deal, like the Eagles knew the salary cap relief that they were going to get by redoing the deal was coming, but it wasn't coming to until June 1st. So it doesn't take into effect until June 1st. Now, to use Bates as an example, I forget what the salary cap is, what the franchise tag is for him. It's over $11
11.
million.
I was good. Is 11 and change, high 11s, I think.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that
Salary cap.
range. I believe the Eagles don't have 11 plus million in salary cap space right now. So they will June 1st. So for instance, that's a deal that can't be done until after June 1st for this reason. Now, everyone correctly assumes that the Eagles were to make that sort of trade, they're going to redo the deal, which they are. But for bookkeeping purposes, you have to fit him under your cap first, under his franchise tag, and then redo the deal. So could be 5 minutes, but you have to have that original space to make the deal. And obviously he would have to sign his franchise tender. So he would count against that cap. Might be for 2 minutes, might be for 1 minute, might be for 60 seconds. But you need that space originally. Eagles don't have it today. They will have it tomorrow. So
fair enough. That's one of the reasons why June 1st is a key date. You're talking about minutes. I did see this morning, John, and it just made me laugh. Shame, I probably should have known it ahead of time. But in the last collective bargaining, we've been talking about it in vague terms, and the Eagles are one of those teams that never come close to getting called on the carpet because they've overextended practices. These practices right now used to be that it was a maximum of 2 hours for any off-season OTAs, off-season training activities. Now it's even tiered that the first couple of days you're only allowed 90 minutes. The next couple of days you're allowed 105 minutes, which would be an hour and 45 minutes for those of you who are struggling with the conversion. I was. And then, the last couple of days you can get all the way up to 2 full hours of activities in. They have this defined down to the minute.
Yeah. And this is, again, where the Eagles, Jody, are ahead of the curve. All right. They already been doing this. Whether they knew it was coming, and they probably did, and we joked about it last offseason about the length of the training camp practices. It's the way the league's going. You might as well get used to it. You might as well be ahead of the curve. You might as well try to get the most out of the time allotted as humanly possible. And really, I've talked about this with veteran coaches a lot. A lot of veteran coaches don't like it, bang their head against the wall. And that's all fine and good. And I agree with them in general principle, but it doesn't matter. That's the rules. You got to do the best you can with what is given to you. You can complain about it afterwards and say, this stinks, blah, 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 whatever. And I'll agree with you. But I want somebody who's going to take advantage of what is available, not complain about what isn't available. And that's where I think the Eagles have been sort of ahead of the game. But I don't like it.
They had this pesky thing, game days during the NFL, that they call like the rules there too. Play 60 minutes,
exactly.
Can't jump offside. There are rules in everything in life. So no matter how much you may or may not like the rules, it always pays to follow them and stay within them. So the Eagles are doing just that. Yeah, I'm going to complain. You can complain. I'm going to complain loudly, even though I don't make it down for even grass time. But still, I know what the National Football League used to be. I think a little more work wouldn't hurt anybody. I know the reason why it is reduced, because the owners grab and claw every single penny in every collective bargaining agreement, and they got to give some less practice players. and the players take it and move on with it. But I would like to see a little bit more work put in. It doesn't matter. The rules are in place. You got to follow them. The Eagles will follow the rules this week and not get overly taxed by the OTAs that they've got in place. But it's nice the Eagles get back out on the field. That's what Mac and I are going to be talking about for the rest of the week. And we're going to have good guests jump aboard to give us extra insight on that, including starting next. John Stolen is still doing some writing for Bleeding Green Nation. His podcast, Eye on the Enemy, a good listen for all you Birds fans out there. John Stolness joins us next here on Birds 365.